How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
All right, let's bring in our VIP guest. He is Media Research Center President David Bozell, and he has had quite the week. He has been laying out how Apple News, along with Google News, Yahoo News, MSN News, basically that's the big four of news aggregation. Aggregation meaning that they take stories and they push it out to the public, and they have more control over what you see than you know, believe me, by a country mile. And now, obviously, playing an outside role in shaping how Americans consume their headlines. David, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mr. Concha. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I have to ask about your dad first. Obviously, the ambassador now, U.S. ambassador to South Africa. I understand he's slightly delayed due to an illness, not maybe a serious one per se, but getting by it. But apparently, dogs always come first in the situation. Tell us exactly what's going on in South Africa and Johannesburg. Who's there and who's not?
Well, apparently, even if you are an ambassador, Joe, you have to get if you want to bring your dog to the country that you're the ambassador of, you've got to go through a battery of tests, and you've got to do it within a certain 30-day window in order for him to get the dog into the country. Well, my parents were supposed to leave last weekend to head over to South Africa. The ambassador, my father, fell ill, just run-of-the-mill sort of winter cold. It's been like Hoth here, Star Wars, just like everywhere else in the country. Had a winter cold, better part of hour. Doctor said, give it a week and then go. But they had to decide what to do with the darn dog, and because they were going to be outside this window if they waited any longer. So, in the irony of ironies, because they didn't think they were going to even get the dog in there, they had to send the dog the next day. And now my parents' dog Cosmo, the Springer Spaniel, is now ambassador dog. Running your foreign policy affairs and State Department activities, representing the United States well in South Africa. He has the embassy all to himself.
Wow. People, have the fake laugh, and you've watched enough broadcast news or radio and everything. That was real. Ambassador dog. I mean, that is awesome. And it's true. Yeah. And Cosmo, which obviously was Cosmo Kramer, that was his name that wasn't revealed till the final season of Seinfeld. So that is huge. But, oh, man, I get it completely. And David, I don't know if you have dogs, but I have two. And when we go away, like when I go away with the Media Research Center for cruises to Italy and Croatia or to the Bahamas or Norway like we did last year, the dogs have to go somewhere. You can't just leave them in the house like cats and, they'll survive. It's very expensive. It's $50 a night per dog. And if you add it up over 10 nights, well, that's not cheap. So, I understand why your dad had to get him somewhere.
Try getting him a plane ticket in one of the longest flights in the world, Dulles Airport, Washington, to Johannesburg, South Africa. So, but he survived. He did well. We got the photos to prove it. We got the videos to prove it. He is marking his territory in the outer rims of the residence of the ambassador of South Africa. So he's doing well. So they're excited about getting over there, and they'll be over there, I think, this weekend.
Sure. No, I always, your dad always had the best joke with me, which is the reason why my head is still on my body is because I haven't been sent to South Africa yet to be the ambassador. In other words, if he's just waiting for the beheading, but no, I have a feeling that it's a mess over there, certainly. And that's such an honor that your dad was able to take on this job, which will be a heavy lift. And I hope to get an interview with him as far as not now, obviously. Let's go 3 or 4 months in and see what he is uncovering there. But I would imagine you'll be in touch with him every day. And it really is just, this is probably the toughest job of all the ambassadorships, I'll say.
Yeah, I think, that's, I haven't thought about it that way, but perhaps, I mean, look, they've got saber rattling by the Chinese. You've got the ANC. You've got the Communist Party over there. The economic and the poverty levels are just off the charts. You've got the Kill the Boer movement. It's a mess. But the president wanted a bulldog in there, and there's nobody better than my dad to do that sort of thing. And we'll see what's going on, get his boots on the ground, and represent America first very, very well. I'm sure of it. He's
Absolutely.
super excited.
And you weren't kidding, by the way. I just looked it up because I'm on radio, so I could go to Google without anybody seeing. Dulles to Johannesburg, 18 hours. I mean, I can't do 3 to Florida. I get a little antsy, so 18. That's difficult. I would break that up if I were him. But nevertheless, I do want to talk about your new findings for the MRC Free Speech America Digital News Tracker. Tell us about that, as far as particularly Apple News, because on my phone, I'm constantly fed stuff on there, and I could feel the bias like coming through as if it's almost as if it's like MS Now or CNN feeding me my news. But the problem is, I understand it's biased, but a lot of people out there, they're getting this sort of news from a particular perspective from the left, don't know it yet. The big four, as you call them, as they're called, certainly this is something that needs more attention. That's why I wanted to have you on here tonight, David.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Look, this was late last summer after I had just taken over as president of media research. We were discussing as a team. I actually asked the team, I said, what's the number one rated news website in America by traffic? And we were kind of disappointed to find out it was the New York Times at 440 million hits a month. And then number 2 was CNN at 330 million hits a month. Now CNN we raised our eye. New York Times you could sort of excuse because of recipes, book reviews, crossword puzzles, Wordle, et cetera, et cetera. So, but even if you cut that in half, it's still too much for the New York Times. But Seriously. CNN was odd, right? You get the believability rate of the media is in the high 20s. And so, you got over 80% of the country doesn't believe what they're getting from the media. CNN's ratings are now number 3, I saw just last week, behind MSNOW. So, or whatever they're calling themselves now. So, here's the situation where their ratings are in the toilet. Their trust and believability is in the toilet. So how are they the number 2 rated news website in America? But the one that really got us was what we call the curious case of Newsweek. In the month of November, when we started looking at this, we saw that Newsweek was the number 11th rated news website in America. Now, you cannot walk, ladies and gentlemen, in any direction, from any direction, and find anyone clamoring to read their Newsweek, that they got to have their Newsweek. It's not mentioned anywhere. I couldn't even tell you the last story Newsweek ever broke. Yeah. And yet there it sat as the number 11th website in America. Remember, it had sold for $1 not 10 years ago. $1. That's right. It was commercially bankrupt, editorially absent from all news gathering. So how is it that they're the number 11th rated news website in America? Well, we started doing some tracking, and we developed this digital news tracker. And as it turns out, they are the top website in America based solely on the aid that they get from Microsoft, MSN News, which is actually the number 4th rated website in America at 137 million people a month. And we started looking at the top 10. Who else is in the top 10 with MSN? Google at number 9, Yahoo at number 6, and Apple, if we're considered a website, if you just added the users of the app, would be number 7th. So the four of the top 10 rated news gathering apparatuses in the United States right now are aggregators: Apple, Google, Yahoo, and MSN. So we developed this news tracker to see what they were pushing, how often they were pushing it, and the quality of the placement in which they were pushing it. So you're on Fox day in and day out. Yahoo posts a lot of Fox. Good for Yahoo, right? They put some balance out there. The average placement of a Fox story on Yahoo is 27th. In other words, you have to get through 26 stories to get to a Fox story at 27. Now, and what kind of stories from Fox are they putting out there? It's not hard. I mean, no disrespect to anybody at Fox doing any type of story, but it's soft news. It's the latest on Pat Mahomes' ankle injury. It's, right. Last picture of girl before she falls off cruise boat. It's not political narrative, right? It's not raw news. And that is what they reserve for the New York Times. It's what they reserve for the Washington Post. It's what they reserve for CNN. So we did those with all 4. And it turns out the worst of them is Apple. And they've given zero coverage, zero links in the last 2 months. Tomorrow, Friday, will be the 100th day in a row in which they have failed to highlight a right-wing publication on Apple News.
That's amazing. And you're breaking news for almost everybody who's listening right now in New York and around the country, because I don't think a lot of people understand this. We're talking to David Bozell, the president of the Media Research Center. That's the thing. When you hear about the Washington Post letting go of 1/3 of its staff and CNN dropping to number 3, I think I saw from the MRC as well that since 2016, CNN's lost 70% of their audience, which they never really had a big audience to begin with. So that's certainly a lot. Yeah. So you say, all right, legacy media is dying. Like that's the thing that we hear over and over again. And Fox is number 1 in terms of obviously on the air, beating even broadcast networks at this point. But if the news is being aggregated outside of people watching live, then therefore we're still in a bubble while liberal content is still getting out to a huge majority of the people. I guess my question for you, David, is, given that perhaps you have the ear of the president or Brent Bozell has the ear of the president, is there a way to get to Congress and say, hey, this is not under FCC rules, I would think, or maybe it's not even FCC since it's online. I'm not even sure. I should know this stuff. Right. But how do you make it fair and balanced, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, well, so we put our research out there. We did a special report on Apple, celebrating basically whatever it was. This is last Monday, so it was like the 95th day in a row that they had failed to showcase a right-wing news outlet. And the New York Post called us and really put our methodology to the test, which was great. And it was really good on the Washington Post to put us through the grinder on that. And they were satisfied with the results of our methodology and the work that we did. They put out their own report. They contacted Apple for a response. Apple at first failed to respond or didn't want to respond. I don't know which. The story went out. Then Apple called New York Post and said, we'd like to put our statement in there. It got in there. The president shared the New York Post story overnight, Monday night. And then Tuesday afternoon, FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson wrote a letter to Tim Cook asking, is he violating user agreement? And I'm not a lawyer, but there's, look, Apple has a right editorially to do what it wants. But if they're presenting themselves as a neutral arbiter of the narrative of the day, they have a tough time sticking by that claim if not 100%, but if 80% of the news that they select is left wing, the rest would be center, and then there's no right wing news to choose from. They did 620 stories in the month of January, Joe. 440 of them were from left wing outlets.
Wow!
And so how are you going to say that you're a neutral arbiter of these types of things? So there's some legalities that the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is going to be investigating. It's not a free speech thing, but there's other arenas. And look, we're tickled that policymakers are taking the research and want to put some disinfectant on these operations. Yeah. These guys reach more people than the broadcast evening news shows ever did at their peak.
Yep, country mile.
By a country mile, and so what we're trying to, the public that we really want to educate on this is, it's the nurse in the hospital who's not plugged into a Concha or a Scott Jennings or a Steve Deace or just the center right conservative ecosystem, and they're not on Blue Sky Brigade. They're not on that. Says we want the nurse in the hospital who's just headline scrolling to understand what she's getting. The housing contractor who's going from job to job to understand what he's scrolling. It's just left-wing narrative and legacy media narrative repackaged in a different way.
And just so everybody knows, the Media Research Center, the reason why NPR and PBS are not getting government funding anymore, primarily because of their research, which, by the way, it doesn't come from like right-wing, therefore we want to get rid of left-wing. It comes from objective sources and data that truly is grounded in fact and not fiction. And that is why, at this point, the Media Research Center is a major player and will be with this whole Apple situation, along with Newsweek. That's certainly for sure. David Bozell, president of the Media Research Center, thanks for joining us, sir. And say hi to Cosmo.
Appreciate it. God bless. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.